All right. We ready to rock and roll, everybody? Okay. I'm going to switch the mouse. How about that? That's so much better. All right. Here we go. Page builder. Who's ready for the page builder? Whoop, whoop.
Will be a page.
Yes. All right. Pages. Edit the sample page. So we haven't talked a lot about the plugins that come in with TypeRocket, and that's what we're going to do here. So the page builder is one of those plugins. If I go over to the code, we can actually see that plugin here. Now I've got a few. I've got the builder, the dev, the SEO, and the theme options. I can enable and disable those in the config app area here. I can see my plugins. And a plugin simply consists of a folder inside of the plugins directory, and it has an init file. And so TypeRocket will look inside of this array and say, is there a folder and is there an init file inside that folder? If it is, it'll load it up. So this is your kind of way of compartmentalizing code and moving it around from place to place without having to like drop it into a theme or something. It just makes things easier to kind of bucket together. It's just a nice way of organizing some custom code. If I open up the builder init file, I'll see here this is a simple class, and I initialize the new builder. And when I do that, the constructor of that object applies some filters, and it sends some stuff through. So basically what's going on here is I'm adding stuff before the title. So on this page, I'm adding stuff before the editor box here and then after it. Okay, so that's how I'm getting these buttons. I've just hooked into WordPress. I'm adding some stuff in here. I'm adding some just random things. I'm getting some custom fields that I'm applying automatically that are TypeRocket fields. And here's the important part, is this builder field. So this is a field you can put on anything. So just to prove that to you, I'm going to copy this builder field here, go to our functions, add that book post type. Yeah, I'm going to paste this in here. Now I'm going to have that builder field. It's not just a plugin, it's a custom field. So if I go to my books, edit my book, builder, I can start adding in these custom components anywhere.
For that post type page.
For this post type, yeah, I just added a builder field. So it's just a field, it's not anything special, but the plugin's kind of wrapping up the page with the custom field automatically for you. So it's like just really easy to use it for the most common use case for this field. Does that make sense? So it helps you kind of get started in a common way that you want to, without you having to like disable the standard editor, just in case you want to go between like, I want some pages to just be text and other pages to be these builder kind of pages. So it gives you those options. So the builder field works in this way. You get the builder field, and then the name of that builder field is going to load what are called components, those little PowerPoint looking blocks, into it based on that field name. And so if I look over here under resources, you can see I have components. If I look at those, it looks for that builder name. See where it says builder there? That builder file folder name correlates to that builder name here. Okay? So I get all these components here based on the fact that my builder is here. Now, these are empty. We're going to populate these for the demo. And then the other thing to note is under WordPress assets components, I have this builder section, and here I've got my different files. See here, those are the thumbnails that are being used for that builder component. So under WordPress Assets, Builder, that's where stuff's loaded. So the next part is the front end. Where does all the front end? So I got these builder components. I want to load them up on the front end of my website so it actually displays stuff. Where does all that stuff go? And it's the third file. It's the builder visuals. And so here I have my different builder visual files already populated with some HTML that we're going to throw in here. Okay. Now, so we've got our visuals, we've got our components, and we have our thumbnails. Everybody understand how it works? So if I have this builder field on the page, but for my book, I want to build the page differently. I don't want those, you know, the components that I have now, I don't want it to look like a portfolio site, for example. I want it to look like a book page where I can like have the book cover, the description, and a component under that maybe talks about the author. But I don't want those components to be available for building standard pages. Does that make sense? So I want two separate builder fields. Okay. The way I do that is I would just say this builder field's going to be for maybe the book. So it'll be called the book builder, right? And so I would follow the same paradigm, but instead of calling the folder builder, I would create another folder inside components called book_builder, and then I would add my components in the same way in those three sections. Does that make sense? So now I can have any number of components, any number of builders I want. I'm not restricted to like this page builder concept. It's just a builder field. Another cool thing about the builder field, it's compatible with what's called the matrix field. So how is the matrix field different? So if this is a builder, see that, okay? What's a matrix? Again, I'm trying to hone in on the concept. This is just a field, right? This is not a special plugin that you're limited to just this plugin. If it doesn't work how you want it, like you're stuck. You're not stuck. You can do whatever you want. For example, if you only want the builder for pages, you could remove the editor from that post type, the page post type, and just have the builder and that's it, right? Just using WordPress hooks. So I'm going to refresh this page. Now matrix is different. You don't get PowerPoint style. You pick from a select menu here. So I want the contact one. I'm just going to add new, and then it's going to add the contact in. Now we haven't put any fields in this component, but here it would just add like a repeater style list of different variations. Does that make sense? So how many of you are familiar with multi-dimensional arrays? Multi-dimensional arrays. Matrix is your way of creating a multi-dimensional array with different setups per each section. Whereas a repeater, each section is exact, it's a copy of the exact same thing. A builder and matrix fields can be combinations of anything. And so the builder field is really good for like building interfaces. Whereas the matrix field might be good for setting up some, I don't know how or when you might want to use it, because I use it mostly for page building. Like the matrix field might be good for like complex dashboarding or something like that, you know, where you're not building like a straight kind of PowerPoint style thing. You're like adding widgets to a dashboard for a user interface, for example. The other cool thing about all this is you can use these fields on the front end of your website. So if you're making a member site and you want members to be able to create their own like cool page or whatever, they can use the builder field as well to build their own custom like profile page if they wanted to. So that's pretty neat. So you can use the builder field to do any kind of thing you want. It's just custom fields. All right, so let's take advantage of this builder field. I'm going to close all of my tabs here. We're going to get a fresh start. And everybody clear on what the builder field is and how it works? Yeah? Feel pretty good? So you might say to yourself, this has to be so hard to do, to code all this. I got these 3 files. This is crazy. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's like really easy, actually. So the first thing we do is I want to pick this about field, and I'm going to add it. Now I can see there's no custom fields in here. Contrast isn't the best, but there's like a box around all this if you have it on your computer, because like normally WordPress has a gray background and these are white. The contrast on this screen just isn't doing it justice here. But okay, so what I do is I go to this resources components, and this is where the admin section lives. So under the about page, I've got my about, and under my visual, I have this about visual. So if I go to my, close some of this out. If I go to my home page, yep. If I go to my home page, here's my about section, right? I've got this title, I've got some custom text here, and I got some social icons. So I know the types of fields I need. I need a title for up in here, a description field that I can populate, and maybe a repeater field to kind of list out all my different social media lists, right? So how do I do that? Well, with the builder component, you don't need to new up, as they say, a form field. You can just automatically get access to it. It automatically loads up a form for you for that section. So then I can do form text title and save that. And then under the visual, to this like data array. Everybody familiar with arrays, how those work? Okay, so instead of having to call that function like tr get custom field, I don't have to do that here. I can just access everything automatically through this data object here. Okay, so then I can just type title here because that was the name of my field, and then that'll pop up on the front end. Okay, so let's keep it simple. Let's do this first. Now, here's the gotcha. On the theme section, I actually have to display that field. So I've got all these great sections here, but man, that's going to be a little interesting to get the builder on this page. But if I delete all this stuff, and again, I've got about, before I delete it, kind of walk through what we got. Some features, a portfolio section, to kind of look at a portfolio, this kind of testimonial slider, some kind of weird thing, call out, and contact form, right? And we'll get into MVC when we get down to this component, which will be fun. Okie doke. So go back to the editor. I'm going to delete all that good stuff. I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to reload this page. And what we'll see is we've got this banner still, so I don't want that. So, okay, I got the intro. I don't need that. Save that again. Reload this page. All I want is that footer. Okay, so the rest of those components on the page, those sections, I want to build those into components so I can rearrange and order everything on the page. So the way I do that is I have to get into the WordPress loop again. Just going to steal some code here just to speed things along. And you could put this inside your page template, the page.php, if you wanted to. All right. So then from there, I'm just going to go to the TypeRocket documentation and see what we get to do here with the page builder. So I'm just going to look for the plugin section, page builder, and here it kind of tells you how to do a lot of this stuff. But the main thing I'm looking for is this bit of code here. So behind the scenes, TypeRocket has inside that plugin, if you remember, we had that hidden input field, right, where it said use builder, which is being triggered anytime I toggle this, right? If I have standard, then it's like don't use the builder. If I have that clicked, then there's a hidden field that's changing it to say, hey, use that. And then I've got this components, TR components builder in the debug mode. If I wanted to, I could just copy that, right? and then I would paste it here. Does that make sense? And I'm just copying, like if I didn't want to go to the docs, I could at the very least grab that right there, that help text, and put it right here, and it'll automatically load it in, okay? So I'm just going to do this because I'm not going to use the standard editor at all, but this is how I can do it. So from here, I now have the builder automatically loaded up. If I refresh this page, nothing should really happen because I haven't added any components here, okay? I'm going to refresh this page. I don't technically have to, but I will. So I'm going to click on About, and now we have that title field I just added. Y'all see that happen? That was pretty cool. That happened fast. All right, so About Me. I'm going to update this page, and now I should have an About Me component on that page. Moment of truth. Hey, looky there. That's pretty cool, right? So because of this setup, think about this. Typically, when you have a page builder plugin, you don't have control over a lot, right? You don't have total control over necessarily like what the admin interface is going to look like, right? Here, you have a little bit of control over what you want your admin interface to look like, which isn't technically totally true, but like you can fine-grain control what controls the user has, is basically what I'm saying. Like a lot of builder things, it's like, here's 50 buttons, do whatever you want, go have fun. Whereas you can be kind of the orchestrator of how the user interface works. And that's the power of using this over a page builder. You're able to orchestrate and constrain how it's being used. I've actually heard people say that the client was using Divi, like other developers who have used this for their sites. This isn't just coming from me. They've said, you know, the client was using Divi or something like that, and they thought that was cool, but it was really hard to use. And then we gave them a page builder, and they just loved that way more because it's just simple. And there's something to be said for simplicity and ease of use, okay? So let's get this custom text figured out. This is where we get to play with some fun custom fields. So got my visual, I've got a p tag here. That looks good. So what I probably just need is either an editor or a text area. I'm going to go with a text area to keep it simple, but you could use an editor. My recommendation, you look more into this stuff, is to use like Redactor, for example, as your WYSIWYG editor. It's just so much better. TypeRocket comes with this built into it, but it's an old version that they would license under the GPL. This one isn't licensed under necessarily the GP. Like I can't buy an open source license for this new version to put in a TypeRocket. That's why it's not there. But it's $200, but you can use it on any number of sites you want. It's like unlimited use. So as soon as you own it, you get this thing for all your sites. This is a really good editor to use. The reason you wouldn't use the WP editor, at least up until the recent version, is you couldn't have more than one WP editor on a page, just because of how it's all set up. And if you did want it on the page and you wanted to put it in a meta box and like move it around the screen, it would break completely. So that's the reason for having something like this. If you get the more recent version of Redactor, it just, you have a lot better controls. And I've reached out to these guys about getting open source license. They just hadn't gotten back to me. So at least on Twitter, I don't know. I mean,
so there's a chance of a future version of TypeRocket will include this.
We'll include the latest version. Right now we have an older version, and it works fine. It's just an older version, so as browsers update and it's not being maintained, there will be bugs in the old version of Redactor at some point. Okay, so I'm going to call this content. The editor field is going to be called content. I'm going to go back and edit this page. And now I have this content editor. Okay, yay. So I can do, this is my content. All right, maybe I want to bold some of that text. This is where I'm talking about maybe it could be buggy. well, there it goes. So now it works. I don't know what's going on there. So some of that's bolded. I can update that. My recommendation is typically don't give people access to WYSIWYG editors. Like, you have this page builder for a reason. Like, you want to have constraints. So that's my recommendation, is kind of avoid these WYSIWYG things if you can. Okay, so I'm using the WYSIWYG, so I don't need all these p tags. All right, and we're going to echo out some data, and that data was content, correct? All right, I'm going to view the page again. Did I update it? Okay, this is my content. Just like that, I've gotten my custom content. Now I could do a repeater for all these social media icons if I wanted to. And I'll do this just for the sake of call it social, set some fields, and then let's set that array of fields to be a form text. I call that URL, and then we're going to maybe do a select list, call that icon, or maybe type. And then for a select field, you can use this thing called set options. And in my set options, I actually have a list of functions that I set up inside my thing. So some of these are here. So social icons already have a list. So for set social icons, I'm just going to call a function that's going to pull an array in, and that's going to list out my stuff. Now, with the set options, you have a few styles that you can do. They're standard, flat, and flip, which means that like this specific list is just, it would be like index 0 value of FA, right? So let's just do this first. See how this turns out. Repeater field, and so I'll see that my indexes are 0 through 4, but I don't want that. But I also don't want to like type a bunch of text in here either, right? I want to keep it clean. So you can do what's called the flat mode. That's going to flatten it out and use the value and the key for both of them. I do that. Add a new social icon. There we go. I got my list of value, and the item would be that. Maybe you wanted your key to be what the values were, like in here. Actually, I'll just do this. If I do flip, instead of it being 1 through 0, it's just going to be those, but then the values will be 1 through 0.
Can you not put the icon in it?
Put the icon in here?
Yes.
I could, but you know, you might use an image field or something like that for this. You would use like custom JavaScript, which you can actually hook into the TypeRocket page builder section using JavaScript and add your own JavaScript stuff. It's like if you wanted to use chosen or select to for your drop down menus, you can actually initiate it on that stuff, and it'll all work great. And there's stuff in the documentation for that. Now, the reason you might want to do this approach where you have your values being numbers is that when it gets saved out, you won't necessarily have to sanitize so much. You can just cast it to an integer and then use that same function to pull it up based on that index. Does that make sense? So like I have my function, and the index would be the value, and I actually want to save that index, not the value, so I can look it up by index. Does that make sense? Everybody tracking, or totally confused? Who's confused? Raise your hand. No? Okay. Okay, so that's what we got going on there. So there's a few cool things we can do here. If I wanted to wire this one up, I just used social here. For the sake of time, you know, this is just a bunch of, well, actually I will do it, just so you can kind of see it. For each, I'm not going to program every single one of these fields because I think it would get redundant. I'm just going to grab one because I'm repeating these, right? And for each. All right, and I'm going to pass in the data. And that data is going to include the social. As there's this nice little thing. Can I use that? I don't think I can. You can only, maybe I can use list. I don't know. I'm just going to call this item, okay? And then item had that URL field. And again, you're going to want to sanitize this. So like you would do like escape URL for the URL, right? I'm not going to do all the escaping all the time, just because that's be kind of a waste of time. PHP, and I'm going to do echo. Oh, no, already did echo. All right, so it's going to be item. You probably noticed I need to put URL in here. Does that make sense to everybody that I'm using URL here? Because it's in a repeater field. Like I'm looping through the social items and I'm grabbing it by the field name of URL. So over here, what did I call it? You gotta remember type. Okay. So here I'm going to do type. TypeRocket does come with this cool sanitize class. So like I could sanitize this and say dash. That way I'll make sure it's a sanitized and clean class name for myself. For example, I'd kind of look into what sanitize dash does for you, but all right. So I'm going to delete all these extra ones. I don't need these. I'm not going to mess with like the duration stuff, though I would make that from 0.6 seconds, 0.2 to 0.6, so we can actually see it do something. So I've got, let's add a few. Let's do Dribble and Facebook. How about that? URL for that and Facebook. Take this. View the page. Did I break something? I think I broke anything. Let's inspect the source here. Yeah.
With TypeRocket, can you advance custom fields as an option that lets you edit it from the front end?
Yes.
Do you have that in
Yeah.
TypeRocket?
Yep. So.
Instead of having to look at the docs?
Yep. So the way I'm going to skip ahead since you're leaving, and kind of give you some. Yeah. So inside your functions file here, anywhere really, you just do tr front end, and that enables front end mode. And the reason you need to do that is to actually load up all the JavaScripts and whatnot into your theme. Now I don't have like a good header and footer inside the index yet, so I would have to do WP head, footers there. Okay. So that would load it up, and then I'm not sure why the builder isn't wanting to go right now. I wonder why it's not wanting to load. Let's do that. Okay, strange. All right, so what you would do for a front end form, you'd get. Oh, I'll do it in the loop. You do a form, tr form, and for these specific forms, you since you're on the front end, you kind of need to tell it what controller and what method on that controller to use. So for example, if I want to update posts or create a post, I would do post create. It might be post. We'll find out in a second. And a form, open, echo, close. And you can do a submit button as a separate field, but this is just like a shortcut. Do text, area, and we'll do post title, and that's the name of the post and the database. So it's going to like basically save it directly to the post type table instead of metadata. I haven't covered that yet, but we can get to it. And this would be like post content, set label, say content, right? And from here, if I refresh the page, I've now got this front end form, and you can't see the labels because the design of this hasn't been set up. But now I've got this post creation piece. Let's see if I've wired it up. Save that. And then go back to database, posts, see if it worked. Post title. I don't see it in here quite yet. I've done something wrong here, but essentially it's this simple.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
So then you can, if you get into MVC stuff, for example, get fancy here. Let me see. If I go into this, where is it, routes file here, I can do a TypeRocket route, and I might call this /post create. And then inside of that route, I could point that to the controller. So I could say create at post, and that'll like send it to that controller path on the post controller. Or if I had like a custom controller, you could call it, I mean, you can create any kind of controller. So then I could put a name in there. The other option, which is kind of a shortcut, you just had something you want to do on the fly, you could do something like that. And if I go to the post create page, was it post create or posts? Should just load up a form here. Post create. Oh, okay, I did this wrong. I want it to respond to a GET request. Does it make sense? You got GET, post, patch, and delete requests. So just whenever I'm getting this page, then it'll load it up. And now I've got my TypeRocket form on a custom section. And then if you wanted to return views, you could do return PR view. And I would do like custom dot file, and that would be the custom file. And then inside of resources, I would create a new folder called views. And then inside of that views folder, I would create a file called file.php, and that would load up that file instead of like having to pump it through this function. Or you could use controllers to do the same thing, which then gives you control. The nice thing about TypeRocket routes, well, not routes, but like the nice thing about TypeRocket views, if you do things in a certain way, TypeRocket knows if you're using AJAX requests, if you're using regular standard post requests. It also knows if you're in the admin or the front end, and you can route your requests differently based on those setups. And so, for example, if I had this custom route on the front end, but I wanted to manage that custom resource on the back end, there's separate views. So if you return one view, here, like I'm returning view custom.file. If I was in the admin, it would return a view from the folder pages.file.php. But if I'm on the front end, it returns a file from views.filename.php. Quick, really snapshot in there, but it does a lot of interesting stuff there. So, yep, quick demo. Awesome. Thanks, Eric, for coming.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so everybody liking the page builder so far? Anybody mind that detour? Everybody cool with that detour? Pretty interesting. Yeah, a little bit of this. Which we'll get to that fun stuff in a second. Let's see where we are on time. Well, we're getting close to the end, aren't we? Okay. So I've got my component loading up stuff here. I've got my visual here. I'm not quite sure. Might need y'all to help me locate the bug. This is just spinning. Anybody see the bug here? It wasn't nose, but.
You haven't closed the
Escape URL. Working just a second ago, so I know nothing should be wrong.
If you just take that section out and you let it
Good call. Maybe there's situation going on. Things up here. Let's go back to the back end. Pages, edit that page. So all of our stuff is saved just perfectly fine. It's going to be one of those, what happened kind of moments.
That's what happens when you
Aha. Y'all see what I did there? Array with not square brackets, but parentheses. Okay, there we go. So now my social stuff should be showing up. Echo URL, I'm not echoing the icon, so that's why that's not showing. All right. Oh, what do I do now? URL, echo type. So when all else fails, there's this handy thing called var dump. That lets you dump all your stuff onto the page. So it lets me know that I have a 0 and a 4 as my item type. This makes sense. Oh, it's because I saved it as a flip. Okay. So I can see here that my data is kind of messed up because I didn't save my field the way I wanted to. So I want to do flat here. And that's going to let me just save that text that I had before straight to the screen. So, alrighty. So I'm just going to update this, and then everything should be good to go. All right, so there I got my dribble icon and my dribble icon. Yeah, I reset it, so okay, so I'm going to update that, refresh that, and now I'm going to get a Facebook at the bottom. Pretty cool. Everybody tracking? Okay. So builder components make sense to everybody? Rocking and rolling? So we got two options here. We got about 30 minutes left. You've seen the builder, you haven't seen MVC yet. Do you want to keep doing more builder, or do you want to jump over and learn about MVC? Builder, more builder. Don't be afraid to vote. Don't be afraid to vote. Who wants to learn the MVC stuff, like setting up your custom routes and whatnot, and doing like cool actual application development, not just building web pages? Anybody into that at all? Yeah? Okay. So it's a tie, which means that we're going to do one more builder component, and then we're going to jump over to MVC. Sound good? All right. So I've got that builder component set up. What's my next one? I'll let y'all pick, because the contact component's going to come next, so we can skip that one. But intro, portfolio, review, the promotion. Anybody shout one out?
Service.
Services. Okay. So click services here. It looks like it's a grid. So if I go in here, y'all know where I need to go? Service. All right. Now you'll note when I created these builder components, I put this H1 at the top, and that's what controls this title up here, okay? So the H1, so I could say service list, save that. And because this is using Ajax, even though it says service here, when I load it in, it'll say service list. Okay, so I'm controlling that in that way. Okay, so we need some custom fields, right? Now the service list was simply a list of items, if y'all remember. Let's say services, okay? And that service had a title. And that service had a short description. So, I mean, I could go with a text field or a text area here. Description. All right. And then they did have icons. So I could go back to my list and see kind of what I had set up. It looks like I got some icons in an array, so I can use that. So I'm just going to do those icons for this one. Oops, that's the wrong guy there. I'm going to close the about and go to the service one here. And I'm going to do this one as flat as well. Make sense? Are you tracking? All right, so I'm going to do that. And now that I got this services stuff here, I can go to my visuals. And under the about, I had already done this loop, so I'm just going to copy that one. That makes it pretty easy. Now I'm going to find my service HTML. And here I can see I have a row, and then I've got these items in the row. So I'm just going to pull in that. And then I'm going to put one of my rows in here. I'm going to delete this other stuff. Does everybody see what I'm doing here? I'm taking HTML that was a 4-column list. I'm deleting it and putting it in a for each, so now I can have all that custom stuff. So now for my item, I'm not going to var dump this stuff anymore. I can see that I have this font awesome icon. So item, it was of type. And I had a title. And then I had a content, right? Was that right? I'm going to change my delay here. I could set up the list for delays and then custom control the delay and how they fade in if I wanted to. Okay, so that's the services. That was pretty easy. I'm going to remove these old ones. The nice thing about the builder component is, like, as you edit it, because it loads via Ajax, like, I don't have to reload the page every time I want to make a change. I just load up a new one. Or it was actually description, not content. Okay, save that. All right, a title, a description, and a map marker, right? Update that page. View the page. And it's saying I didn't give it the right for each. So I still had social, but it was services, because that's what I named the repeater field. And now I have my service here. Pretty cool, right? Now I can start adding more items to that grid. So my service list here looks like by this template icon, it should be about 3 items. So I'm just going to do 2 and 3. I'm going to do a rocket for that one, and let's do code pin for that one. Content. Maybe I want to flip those around, so I want that number 2 at the bottom. So now the title one's at the top, number 2's at the bottom. I can contract them, kind of see how many I got. Maybe I want to move this one over here. Update this page. That's the power of a repeater field there. Review the page, and I should have my 3 sections. There we go. Just like that, I've got a new builder component. Good deal. So I want to go clean up just for the sake of my OCD. And let's see this thing in action here. All right, so I got my about section with my icons and all that good stuff. But this is the cool part. I could go in here and I can create as many of these components as I want now, right? I can have 4 about sections and, you know, different services in between each one. I can build this page up to be as big as I want. So I can go edit this. I say I want the service list at the top, and I want another, you know, about section underneath that first one. I'm gonna call that 2. And this is more content, right? Update that. I didn't add any socials, so I might get a bug here because I didn't account for that, right? I need like a. I could put an if statement and say, hey, social icons aren't required, right? But there we go. I'm already building up a page. Pretty cool, right? Some of you have seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, who wants to learn some MVC? We need to stretch a little bit. I know we're kind of going long in the tooth at this point. Yeah? All right. Need to stand up, stretch, do like a few jumping jacks, move around. All right. Y'all have any questions so far? I don't want to leave y'all without answering questions.
Can we get copies of the basic files that you, the basic structure?
Yeah, sure.
of the files that you were-
I'll put it on GitHub.
Okay.
Yep. Just follow me on GitHub, Kevin Dees, and then you'll see WP Greenville on there.
In the description of the video too.
Okay, perfect.
Not the link if you shoot.
Yeah, that would
Yep.
be great.
All right, who's ready for some crazy MVC action? Now let's do it. All right, so we got this contact form down here, and we want to use this contact form using MVC. Okay, so this is a component that we have. I'm not really going to wire up a whole lot, but I do want an MVC form on the front end. So I'm in the visual or the contact page. Step 1, I need a form, PR form, and then this form needs to open up, and it needs to be echoed to the page. So that opens up the open tag for the form. And then I need a closing section. I'm going to add a submit button. This one, and I'm going to call this send. Okay. Now, from here, I have this form, but I want to send this form to a specific path. So what I can actually do up here in the form is I can set the, I think, the URL. Okay, I want to use a URL for this one. So this is like controlling where the form gets submitted to. So I can say /contact/send. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Like, in my action, typically that would be like /mail.php, right? And you would submit that PHP form. Whenever you click the button, it would submit it to that page, right? So what I'm telling this here is when this form is submitted, send it to /contact/send. And you know that this page does not exist yet.
Does it say contact?
Content, yep.
I was like, he said contact.
Okay.
I'm saying the contact.
Yep, contact, okay. So let me just do a simple text field here and call this subject, right? So we've got that subject. Now I need to go back to edit this page. I'm going to delete that old field, and I'm going to grab this contact component. I'm just going to actually keep that at the top of the page. Now, one of the problems here is whenever we have a builder component, it doesn't have any custom fields, it won't get saved. So I do need to kind of control this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, it says contact me here. Echo data. I'm going to call this title. Save that. And then on the contact component, I'm going to take the form, I'm going to echo a text field, and I'm going to call that title. I always forget to write echo because in this TypeRocket 2.0, which was before this one, you didn't have to write the echo statement, which limited some of the capabilities, so I got rid of that feature. All right, let's see. All right, contact form. Update that. Now that I got this component on the page, I can go inspect it and see what my form looks like. So this is going to be pretty cool if it'll load, if I didn't break something. Contact data, echoed that out. Form. All that looks good. Parameter use. Okay, so what I messed up here was this code is broken. I want to send a post request to that URL. So if I refresh this page, that should load now. Okay, so here's my really simple contact form. I'm not using these fields here. If I inspect this, need some water. Let's look at our form here, our HTML. That look plenty big. All right. Okay. So we created our form. We'll look here. It's going to send a request to /contact/send. It's going to post that. And then I've got my nonce field, which is going to protect me from, what do they call it? CSRF, but it's called something else. There's like a short name for it. And then I have this faker method, _method post. And HTML forms do not let you submit anything other than get and post requests. So you can fake it by adding this _method piece. So you can send like a patch or a push or like a patch or a delete request to kind of let the system kind of cheat to know what you're trying to do. Typically, post is for creating stuff. So I want to send a creation of an email to send. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So I'm sending that off there, but I want this form to look like this one right here. So if I look at my form here, my open tag, I can add some attributes in. So some of the attributes I want to add in, right? I want to add a class of contact form, right? And then it has an ID of con form. Whoops. All right. So that takes care of my form tag. Let me see how this looks now. So again, I'm trying to make this form look like this one. Refresh the page. Okay, it's getting a little bit better. That HTML field looks a little bit better, but that send button doesn't look right. So I need a contact button. It looks like I just need a class of contact button on this one. So whenever I click Control click, it's just sending me to the form class so I can see what I can add to it. So it says I can take some attributes. So if I go in here, I can do the same thing. I say class contact button. And it looks like I can delete all this good stuff. Oh, center text. Well, I want to center the text, so I'm going to break this out onto its own line. Because I can wrap this stuff in its own HTML.
You have more class attributes under that submit.
Right, so I'm just...
Contact form, contact button, you got that wow and fading up.
Correct,
So
yeah.
you're not going to use those.
Yeah, I'm not going to use those. I might use this ID here, but I want to see if this works first. So again, I'm just trying to mimic what's here. So let's see how this turns out. The button actually looks like a button. So it's not quite there yet. It looks like it's probably because this is a button. So the nice thing is, hey, I don't actually have to use the TypeRocket submit button. I could just use that submit button. A submit button is a submit button, right? If I'm not getting the design I want, I can just do that. Okay, now I'm looking pretty good. I had some placeholder text here, so let me do that. Actually, let's just, instead of being subject, let's make it email. How about that? And for this text field, I can apply some custom classes. Oops, I think it's placeholder text, right? Placeholder. So we should be getting pretty close to what we had before. There we go. All right, so what were my other fields? Your name. So I can call this name, and then your name. It looks like that was required, and then your message. Next area. All right. Message. All right. All right, your message. And if I wanted to, I could even put like these required fields in here, right? So I could do like, so that way, you know, I can kind of have the same exact setup here. So if you notice, there's no content kind of wrapping any of that. So I have a feeling that I'm going to run into some issues. So I'm trying to duplicate what was there before. So I got all this extra space in here. I don't want that. So if I inspect it again, you'll notice that TypeRocket's adding all this extra HTML. You know, I've got this control section, TypeRocket fields text. And I got all this extra HTML I don't want in there. So what I can do here is I think render setting. So I can set the render setting to raw. And now it's not going to add any extra stuff. It's just going to put in. So see how I have these section control stuff here? If I do raw, it's only going to put in the actual input fields. So now I don't have to have all that crazy stuff. And you can do this on the back end too. If you're like, I don't want TypeRocket to do any design work for me, you can set render setting to raw, and then you're off to the races. Let's see if that did what I wanted it to do. Hey, that looks good. How about that? That field looks exactly like it did on the back end. Now that I've got my form set up just how I want it, everything is looking good. Now you'll note that before I had turned on tr_frontend. And remember, all that really does is add all the JavaScript and CSS that we need for the custom fields, right? But in this situation, I already have the CSS and JavaScript I need for this. I don't need TypeRocket to add the media uploader and all that junk into the front end because all I want is a simple contact form. So I don't really need to turn on the front end mode for this specific form. So now that I have my custom form, it's time to create that custom route, okay? I need that contact/send. Now some people would say, okay, I gotta go create in the WordPress admin a page, right? I need a new page. I gotta create a page called contact. Then I gotta go create a child page for that called send, right? So I have the path I want to submit to. But now I got 2 pages that are there for nothing but to submit a contact form, which is not what we want. So that's where this idea of custom routes come in TypeRocket, and that's this routes file that we had before. Now we create one called contact/send. Everybody following so far? And we don't want a GET request. We had a form with a POST request. We want this specific route to respond only to POST requests. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So what's routes? What are routes? Who knows what routes are? Anybody?
That's where the file is going to, type text file, or the email is going to land on, right? Or the message.
Right. So it's a route is the path that you're going to take. Like the route, think of it this way. A bus, a train station. Your train station is your router. It routes all the trains around. And the different tracks are your different routes. And then if we're talking about the car analogy we did before, each route goes to a specific controller, right? Like each one goes down a different path. And each controller, depending on what you want to do, you're going to send it to a specific method on that controller. And we're going to look at that now, okay? So this is where we have to break out our command line tool again. So we did the controller model and stuff, but this time we only want a controller. So I'm going to make a controller, and it's going to be called contact. And this is nice. I can create controllers for things other than post types and terms, right? Like my controllers and models can be used for anything I want, not just for post types and terms and taxonomies and stuff. So I want a controller that can take advantage of this. Oops, I got to have a directive. This is going to be called base, okay? Contact. All right, so I want a base controller to be called contact.
What's a base controller? Like, what do you mean by base?
Right, so there's types of controllers. There's base, which is for things like your simple CRUD application, create, update, delete, okay? Then you've got post controllers, which WordPress has like interesting ways of saving and creating posts. So there's like a separate controller that TypeRocket takes care of for you to wire up all this craziness so you don't have to worry about it. The same thing for terms. So, but if you're going to create your own controller with your CRUD stuff, then this is where you head for. So let's look at the difference here. Under app controllers, I now have this contact controller. And under here, I have this index, add, create, edit, update, show, delete, destroy. These are all methods that I can access. And the way we access those in our routes file here is by saying, let's say, for example, I want the index page on the contact controller. And then whenever I go to /contact/send, it's going to look for the contact controller. And it's going to look for this index method and then run any code inside of here. Does that make sense, everybody? So this is powerful because when I submit my post through that contact form, it's going to send a post request or my email through that form. It's going to go to the route. It's going to say, hey, I need to go to this location. So when I submit the form, it's going to load up this location, and then I can run any of my code that I want to, right? So for example, I could say WP mail to, I could get, I think, a TR request. Nope, I can't get request there. Okay. So I'm pretty sure, I think I can do it this way. Okay. This request, and then from here I can get post data, right?
What's this again?
This refers to the context of the thing. So all I have to really remember is I want the request, I want to get the post data, which is the email, right? And then I would put that, email here to this location. And then I think WP mail. I need a subject and a message. Okay.
How did you click and go do that?
So this is just a
It's
a PHP Storm thing.
Yeah, I have PHP Storm.
My mouth is getting really dry.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully I'm gonna lose my voice tomorrow a bit.
You just click it? You just
Control click it.
okay.
So I need a subject and a message. All right, so subject will be website email, right? And the message would be the message that got sent. This right here is the same as doing Does that make sense to everybody? The difference being just technically kind of wrong. Because what really gets submitted is this. Whenever using TypeRocket. It prefixes everything with TR. So let's just see what happens here. I'm not going to send anything quite yet, because I don't have this actually set up to send me anything. But it's probably just going to tell me I don't have any of these things. So, all right. So when I go to that, does it make sense to everybody? I'm retrieving this stuff when the form gets submitted. Okay. So let's just submit the form. Let's put an email in here. Nothing happens.
Message is required.
Oh, that's right. Okay, it's sending it. And it looks like there's some JavaScript going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about. First child. Yep. I also got an error on that page. Whoops. If I look at the network here. All right, so number one, what's probably going on inside of my contact visual is this specific theme that I'm using for a demo that's probably watching the ID on that submit button. And it's telling it to do via Ajax, which I do not want to do. Okay, reload this page. Let's try to get it to not use Ajax. It's going to force me to use Ajax here. Okay. Theme.js. Yep. If I go to network, I have to minimize that and actually see what's going on. All right. Console. It's telling me I got that error. Let me do this. I bet it's wired up to that ID as well. So I really would like to send this off. Hopefully it won't break the design. But you kind of see we were able to pull off the design. Okay. Let's try again. Send that message. There we go. Okay. Something went terribly wrong. So what happened here? I got my route. It requested it through here. But something bad happened. So number one, TypeRocket doesn't know what to do with this request because I haven't told it how to handle it. Like, we don't want anybody just submitting requests to our website, right? So that's where this thing called HTTP kernel comes in. And this is like your security layer. It's like going to protect you, okay? And essentially, anytime you have a resource, a new resource that you want to have in place, it's going to go to this no resource location. But I created this contact kind of location. I want to do a contact, and I want this to be like a free space. So If I do contact and nothing for middleware, that should help the situation some. So let me try to resend that. And something is still going wrong. So I'm in my index controller. Let's just var dump the request. Let's see what happens here. Still, something's going terribly wrong. Let's see what I'm missing here. Because technically I'm logged in, right? Yeah. All right. This is where I'm losing my mind here. Post indexed on contact. This is where you consult the documentation again. Everything goes wrong. Routes. I might have the orders wrong or something. Log in on member. That's right. So, okay. I think I might know what's going on here. Verify the nonce. Yep, that's probably what's happening. Let me just see if that fixes our issue. Probably doing something terribly wrong, and I'm not quite sure what I did. Controller, let's keep this simple. I'm actually going to change the name of this. It doesn't have to be index, okay? This could be, let's call this send email, right? And I don't need the rest of all this stuff. I'm going to clean that up quite a bit. So that, you know, I can simplify my controller if I want to. That might help me out quite a bit. So contact, post request to the send. Send. Okay, here we go. So there was something going on inside of my middleware. Oh, I know what it was. Well, maybe I don't. I'm not sure what I know. So I got rid of some of this stuff in the kernel. Let's figure out which one of these broke it. Or maybe it was I was sending it to the index and I shouldn't have been. Yep, and even this contact thing, I bet. So the good news will be if you want to create this kind of stuff, yeah. So the good news is that I probably spelled index wrong. Index. So yeah, for whatever reason, I just needed to rename this function because the index is set up to work in a specific way with the CRUD stuff. So I was probably, I'm not sure why that didn't work out the way I thought it would. But okay, so send email worked just fine. So that's good news. So now that I have my request here, I can kind of look at what I have options for. So I got this post data, I got this TR under post, and then there's all my good stuff. You see that there? So there's what I'm interested in. If I get the post data, let's see what that turns out. I submit that request to send. Oops. I need to die here. Okay, so I got my post data, and it looks like I do need to grab that TR object. I'm pretty sure, though, I can get the fields. That might turn out something even better. So let's do get fields here. Okay, so if I just say get fields, then it knows, hey, let's get all the TypeRocket fields. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm just going to go, I'm going to say get fields, and I got all my fields. So from here, I could input in the name, email, and message, right? Email, and then message. And then that would send off the email. Does that make sense? Like that would send off my email that I want. However, I don't want to just send an email and be done, right? I want them to land on a thank you page, right? That would make a lot of sense. So you can do this in TypeRocket. You can return a redirect, and you can send that redirect to a URL. And we want to create a thanks page, right? So contact/thanks. So then over here, I'm going to create a route for a thanks page. I'm going to have that return some text. Let's say thanks. Okay. I'm going to send off an email after I get my field. I'm not sanitizing. I should do all that good stuff. And then I'm going to tell it to go to contact/thanks. Now I have this new method on my contact controller. So under my routes, I can just say contact/thanks and then send it to thanks on the contact controller. Does that make sense to everybody? So I created a controller using the command line tool. I created my routes to set up those requests when they come in. And then inside of that contact controller, I'm able to do everything I need in one place about that contact form. Now, if you're familiar with how you would do that in WordPress, typically is you would just find some random spot and do it there, right? Like, and then you'd be like, where was I submitting that? And then you have to like figure out all this crazy stuff. So you don't have to do that anymore. All right, so here we go. We're getting to the end here, which is great. Okay, under my visuals contact, I'm not going to make this field required anymore, just to kind of speed up some stuff for us here. I'm going to go back to that sample page. There we go. Shouldn't need that guy anymore. All right, so I'm going to fill out these fields. I'm going to submit the message. It goes, it sends it, and then it sends me to the thank you area. But the contact/thanks did not work. Well, why was that? Well, if you notice, I sent it a post request, right? A GET request is for a regular URL. So if I do GET here, I can now submit this the correct way. So now I should see something went wrong. All right, live demos. Okay, so I'm returning that thanks function. My route is thanked, not thanks. Y'all see that typo? Okay. One more time. All right, send it. Thanks. Excellent. Very beautiful.
So you can technically create a thanks page or thank you page.
Yeah, so that's where views come in, which is exactly where we're headed. So TypeRocket views, you just do tr view, and then here, I would type the view that I want. So I want a contact thanks view, okay? Under resources, near assets, components, and all that good stuff, I'm going to create a new folder called views. And inside that views folder, I'm going to create a new PHP file called, guess what? Thanks. Okay, now for some even funner stuff. Let's get rid of some of these that I don't need. Funnest. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I could put all of this stuff into a header.php file, right? Save that. Ooh. And a new one called footer PHP. Here. grab my index here, delete that, get header. Everybody tracking with what I'm doing here? Everybody used to this good stuff? JavaScript, get footer. My footer stuff down here. And then inside my view template file, I can do get header, get footer, whoop, not hooter, footer. Get a H1 tag in here. And thanks. All right, failed to open stream.
I think your header and footer files need to have the PHP
Footer. No, I'm not using any PHP at the opening beginning there. Let's see what's going on here. Routes 91. Okay. Contact. I didn't create a contact folder. So I'm not sending over an actual view. So I'm going to put that view file inside the contact. Does that make sense to everybody? Under views, contact, thanks, contact, thanks.
So if you would have just put thanks.
If I had just put thanks, then it would have worked. Right? So if I move this into views here and got rid of contact, it would load up that thanks file. And that should work just fine. Contact thanks. There. Okay. And I do note inside of my footer file, I didn't actually get the footer. So I might want that. I want my footer to actually show up, right? There we go. So not the best looking design since this is like a portfolio thing, but it's working, right? I've got my custom views, my custom routes, and everything set up the way I want it. And that's that. However, what if I wanted to just save those contact submissions to the database? Y'all got time for that, or what y'all want to do? Save it to the database? All right. We are. All right, so now we're just going to create a model, base model called contact. And this is going to let us do some cool stuff. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a new table, WP, contacts, okay? Inside of that, I'm just going to call this email. We're just going to save the email for now.
So you're creating a database build.
Correct. We're going to save data to the database using TypeRocket. So I can store all my messages, right? And maybe this is going to be a blog. Make it easy. Okay, so I got email, message, and that. So instead of sending the emails, I'm going to save them. Does that make sense? So under models, I can go get this contact model. And we'll see, because I used base, it's automatically going to wire it up to the database. That's all I had to do. And then in my contact controller, instead of doing that, I can create a new contact. And then from here, I can say new contact. And actually, I'm going to do this just so nobody's confused. technically, you would call that contact model in this way. So I have a new contact model. Then I can just say contact email equals the email that I want, and the message is the message that I want. And this is how easy it is to save stuff to your database. And I'm going to do contact, save it. I could still send the email if I wanted to. Now I'm going to, once I've created that contact in my database, I'll know I have records of everything, not just emails of everything. Not going to var dump those fields anymore. Okay, so that should start creating some contacts for me. I go to my sample page, punch in a message here, send that message. It says thanks, and if I go to my database, I've got a record. How about that? So that's how powerful models are. You notice you didn't have to write any SQL. No SQL code at all. That's great. So you might say, well, this causes problems. And I'll end on this. This will give you a little tidbit here. How do you protect yourself against people from being crazy? Like, what's to stop somebody from sending miscellaneous stuff and submitting bad garbage to your app? Well, spamming you. Well, models have these cool features called fillable fields and guard fields. So this works for your post types as well. So you can get access to this thing called fillable. And here I can list all the fields that should be fillable. Email and message. And then I never want anybody to be able to edit, per se, the ID, right? So then this is very useful for situations where I'm not doing it here specifically, but I'm pretty sure, yeah. Like, all I technically have to do is that right there. I really wanted to shorten it up. I can get those fields, save those fields, and be done for the database, okay? So where this becomes a problem is if I'm doing this kind of in a lazy way, then if somebody puts inside, they edit the HTML using their editor and they submit an ID, then it's going to like try to save the ID over the top of what I'm already trying to do. Does that make sense? So like they might save it to places that I didn't give them permission to. Like for example, what if you want to let somebody update their user profile? And inside the user profile, there's this special place to put a password, but you're not letting them update their password because it needs to be encrypted, right? Their password. So then they could submit things in the wrong way and it break things. The password's a bad example because TypeRocket also take care of password stuff for you too. But yeah, so I could kind of shortcut this here. And I'll go back. And this should do the same thing. Remember, I got rid of all that setting stuff. So let's do some extra letters in here. Send this message. Let's see if I'm right. Thanks. Yeah, I just grabbed all the custom fields and went and added it right in. So you don't even have to, you know, for your controllers, you don't have to know any SQL or anything. You just get a model, save some fields to it, and it'll update it or add it for you right away. And that's that. And then, yeah, all right. I said that would be the last thing, so I won't hold y'all hostage anymore. Any questions? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So you can do that any way you want. There are these things called validators. Validator. well, let's see, PR validator, and then you can put your fields in here. Do believe options in your fields. Okay. I wonder if, I'm not sure if this is documented. I think it is, the thing. But basically, your validator, you could say email, and that email is required, and it has to be an email, for example. That would validate. But you can also sanitize. Number one, you could sanitize at this level. You could wrap this inside of a PHP function that validates it. Or you can actually do this on the model. So there's a number of ways to do it. Protected, and I believe it's, I can't remember if it's cast or, let me see. I think it's format. Okay. So if you use format here, for example, I could say email, and then I could have some function like sanitize email. Let's say it's san email. So then whenever the model runs into an email, it's going to run that function called san email. You would create that function called san email, and it'll sanitize it for you right before it saves. And I think that will also do it. I think cast, the other one is cast, and that does it when you pull it out of the database. So format does it before you save it, and then cast does it after you save it. So it's a pretty robust model system. It doesn't, like, there's some things that you can't do that aren't super easy, but with the model class, you can do many relationships, all that. You can do all that good stuff in here. And there's documentation on that stuff as well. It's really cool. Like I could say this contact has to belong to a post, and then I could query all the posts. It's kind of cool. Actually, let me go to the post thing. Okay, so here you can see all the fields that are built in. You can see I'm guarding post type and ID, so people can't override that whenever they save stuff. But you can also do this many-to-many relationship. So technically, if I wanted to pull in all the latest posts and all the metadata, it'll pull in all the metadata for that post if I do the meta declaration, or I could say, give me the author, and it'll pull in the author model, not just the author data. Is that, you familiar with all that kind of stuff? Kind of. Well, I'll show you real quick. Let me just hijack the thanks page here. Bar dump. This is how powerful the so you might be used to doing WP query, but here you can do models. So WP post, and then from here I can see posts. I think I can say all. What posts? Okay. Find all. So I'm going to get everything, and I'm going to say where it's published. Find all. I think find all actually has to be last. All right. So I'm going to do published posts. I'm going to find all those published posts. I'm going to echo those posts out of the page. So if I go to contact thanks, it just pulled back all my posts that are published, and it's just one. But what's really cool here is I could say, give me I think post of ID 1, and then I want the meta of that. Actually, I think I need to do find 1. Oh, it is. Find by ID. Let's see. Let's see if that works. So yeah, so here I've got post of 1, and it brings back me the entire metadata for that post. So I can get all the metadata that way. Then you get just access to gobs and gobs of stuff. But you have like a query engine with TypeRocket that you don't have to use a WP query engine for this. What's nice is you could do like categories specifically, and then I can pull in all the categories that I want. Find all, and that'll pull in all the categories. So now I have all my category terms basically right here. So let's let's get the term name. Posts. Well, I can't really sanitize that, but basically, where's my data at here? It didn't actually pull back any data there. Let me get that. All right, so there's all my terms. I can't really see it all because it's truncated it, but it pulls back all the terms for categories. All right, so that's how you can use models and controllers and stuff to do all your custom dealios.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, since y'all stayed to the end, y'all get 3 months of hosting. That's why I'm getting free. I got a code to give you guys since y'all stayed to the end. So if you want 3 months of hosting from A2 Hosting, our sponsor. So they gave me a sponsor code. And it is Greenville WP. She put it all uppercase. Greenville WP, so how she typed it. So I haven't tried their hosting yet. They're just giving us, they're just sponsoring